Greetings and salutations, guys. Eric here with my review of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. The third in a trilogy, well, yeah, there'll probably be more, but so far in a trilogy that, began just 5 years ago. The first one came out right before the pandemic, but has turned into quite a success story. A real kind of marker of how video game movies have kind of turned a corner and really found themselves in a way that for a long time there was a struggle. And also, I should mention, everything I know about Sonic, I basically know from these movies, which is to say, I, of course, am aware of Sonic as a character in popular culture and what he looks like for decades, but I've never played a Sonic game. And so all the lore, everything that I can tell you about Sonic and his backstory, that comes from the movies. And I do think that these movies have been very entertaining, and I quite enjoyed both the first two films and also the Knuckles series. But this third one, this is the best one yet. I was really impressed by this movie, and I did not expect to really have it like kind of lock in with me and actually get a little emotionally moved by it in a way that I was not expecting from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So we pick up here with Sonic and Knuckles and Tails being sent to try to stop Shadow the Hedgehog, the dark counterpart to Sonic, who has a much more sort of dark and tragic backstory. Not that Sonic didn't go through some loss himself, but Shadow, he's pretty pissed. And first and foremost, casting Keanu Reeves as the voice of Shadow is just a really great touch. The fact that he is doing his kind of stoic John Wick type delivery for this character, it just works really well. And I was quite entertained the entire movie hearing Keanu Reeves do this character and really give it this gravitas throughout. All the actors here are very committed to this, because this is a very goofy, strange world with all these characters from the video game that are not made to look photorealistic, which I think is wise. But basically it means that they're kind of cartoon characters interacting with real people. But I think that the movie lets you buy into that, buy into this strange reality where just, these are alien creatures that look like video game / cartoon characters, and that from the people in their lives to the military, everyone is just like, yeah, these things exist around us. This movie is an amazing spotlight for Jim Carrey. It's interesting that Jim Carrey, the only movies he's been doing in recent years is Sonic the Hedgehog, as he's kind of keeps talking about that maybe he'll retire. And this is a really great performance in this one. He goes for broke. He is playing two characters this time. He's playing Dr. Robotnik, but he's also playing Dr. Robotnik's grandfather, Gerald, who comes back into the picture and teams up with Robotnik and turns out to kind of be a much tougher and meaner version of Robotnik. And, look, is this my favorite Jim Carrey role in the history of Jim Carrey roles? Well, no, that's a tough one to say because there's so many great Jim Carrey roles back in the 90s. But he's always been having fun as Robotnik, but I feel like this time he feels like really invested in this characters, I should say. And of course, there's a lot of silly shenanigans happening here along the way that I think he completely commits to. There's this sort of dance sequence where the two Robotniks dance to get through past security. It's complicated, but it's a great physical comedy moment for Jim Carrey. But then on a character level, again, it gets a little deeper, a little more intense than I would ever expect it to, operating at this Sonic level. And I think it's a strange balancing act, and yet I think they pull it off. This is, returning director Jeff Fowler, returning writers Pat Casey, Josh Miller, and John Whittington. And yeah, they know this world very well at this point. They know how these characters should click together. And I feel like you feel the confidence in this movie that they have because it's the third one. That they can go this big with Robotnik as a character, go this big with Team Sonic, as they're called in this movie. And that at this point, we are into these characters. I'm speaking both for the video game fans who are already very into these characters, but also people like me who were kind of introduced to them through this entire movie series. It is rare that part 3 ends up being the best in a series, but this is a great example of that. It really, I think that this one, everything just feels amped up in the right way. There's an action sequence I really enjoyed where it's kind of a zero gravity room, but also it can hold you to the floor, and you've got characters that are both floating around and stuck to the floor. Kristen Ritter is in this movie, has one of the agents of Gun, the ongoing organization in these films, and she has a great little physical comedy moment with Jim Carrey, where they're kind of both trying to get to an important object at the same time. I do wish her character got a little bit better payoff. She kind of vanishes there by the end. But yeah, just lots of great set pieces, continually, delivering some good laughs. There's a lot of great meta, winking, tongue-in-cheek moments in this movie, moments that both kind of address the reality of the film, but also some references to other video game characters that I thought were very funny. This all just clicked, this one. And I went into it being like, okay, cool, another Sonic movie, and then I walked out being like, well, damn, that was a really good time. And all these movies are funny for me, again, as a non-game player, because when they do their teases for what's coming, oh, Tails is here, Shadow is here, and I'm sitting with a bunch of people that are applauding for something that I don't get the reference. But by this point, yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm invested in this, and I might not know what they're teasing for the future. Might not recognize it, but now I'm like, all right, show me what you got, because so far you've been doing a lot of really strong stuff here. This movie dials back a lot on the human characters compared to the first two, but I think that it makes sense for this movie and this story. Again, I think the confidence that they have that Team Sonic can just kind of carry the movie themselves and their interactions. They have these great voice actors, obviously. It's still a blast to hear Idris Elba delivering lines as Knuckles, who might be my favorite character. And his interplay with Ben Schwartz is so good. And then, Jim Carrey, who is a living cartoon, he's got plenty of screen time. But everyone else is kind of like in it, but they're not in it as much as they were last time. But I think that makes sense for the story they're telling here, because it so becomes this story about Shadow and what his dynamic becomes with the Robotniks and what Sonic has to do to stop them, and the sort of the stakes of that. And that's the other thing, is the stakes actually felt real, as much as they're sort of operating at this insane level, and as much as there's sort of things we've seen in other movies before, as far as the tension. I think that this one, you actually feel that there is something tangible here to what the characters are fighting for, what the characters who feel like they've sort of turned to the dark side, where they're coming from, the tragic backstory of Shadow, which I actually was like, oh, this is sad, this is emotional. I know people who know the games were like, oh my god, they're going to do this storyline just based on the glimpses in the trailer. And when they do, I was like, oh yeah, that is a bummer. I get it. I get you, Shadow. I get your pain. And Keanu, you're evoking it so well. I'm fully on board with Team Sonic now. Not that I wasn't before. I was enjoying these movies, but this one, it just had that extra thing about it. It just that thing where a series, has already been happening, but suddenly it just kind of clicks into the next gear. And I really felt that the entire time watching it. I know if you've never been into these movies, it's not like this one will suddenly sell it on you. You're not going to be like, oh, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I hated the first two. This one's great. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you like the first two, I think this one completely delivers more of what you want, yet also adding these different layers to it that I thought, disarmed me. And I quite enjoyed being disarmed in that way. So those are my thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Now playing in theaters. If you could like and you could subscribe, that'd be excellent. All right, guys, take care. Thanks.